Welcome to our lesson on commercial arithmetic. In this particular lesson, we're going to look at company shares. Now, every company begins with capital. Capital is the total amount that has been invested in the company in order to operationalize its operations or its activities. So sometimes this capital is divided into small equal amounts that are called shares. For the purposes of inviting people who have the resources and have the interest in the operations of the business, so they purchase these shares and become the shareholders. They become shareholders of the company. Now, the company generates a profit at the end of its operations, and this profit is normally shared equally among the shareholders. And that payment of the profit to the shareholders is called a dividend. So a dividend is simply a part of the profit that is awarded to a shareholder according to the number of shares that one has in a particular organization. So there are two types of shares. We have the preference shares and we have the ordinary shares. The main difference between these two types of shares is that the people who buy preference shares mainly enjoy more rights in the operation of the organization, such as the right to make a decision or to vote in critical decisions of the organization, whereas those who buy the ordinary shares may not have all those privileges and rights in the organization. However, they are all given a part of the profit. They are all paid dividends at the end of a declared period of operation. So normally the calculation involving shares has to do with how this profit is shared to both preference shareholders and ordinary shareholders. So let's look at an example and just see how this calculation is done. So for example, if there's a company that has a working capital of 450 10% preference shares of 50 kwacha each and 700 ordinary shares of 10 kwacha each, then they will declare a profit of 5,750 after 6 months. How much will each ordinary shareholder receive? Okay, so in this particular situation, we have a total of 450 preference shareholders or shares. We have in this example we have 450 10% preference shares. So these preference shares, they are 450, each valued at 50 kwacha. And there is a preference percentage of 10%. Then the company also has 700 ordinary shares. And each of which is valued at 10 kwacha. All right. So at the end of 6 months, the company has declared a profit of 5,750. So this is the profit that is going to be paid out as dividends to the 1,150 shareholders. But how are these dividends going to be paid out? All right. So to begin with, we look at the total contribution by the preference shareholders. So the total contribution by preference shareholders is 450 by 50, which gives us 22,500 kwacha. This is the total contribution to the capital of the company. Now, the value of the preference shares to the capital is the preference value is 10%, which means each share is 10% of this contribution. 10% of 22.5. 10% of 22.5, and that means 10 over 100. 10 over 100 of 22,500. So we know this 10% of 22.5 is going to be 2,500. 2,250. Okay, 2,250. Okay. So what this means is that 2,250. So it means that whenever the company makes a profit, 2,250 must be reserved for the preference shares. That is 10% of the contribution of the preferential shareholders. So the 10% of their contribution must always be retained in the declared profit. So the declared profit we have 5,750. So in this 5,750, we need to remove the share of dividends which is reserved for the preference shares, and what we get is the amount which is available for the ordinary shares. So this 5,750 minus 2,250, this should give us 3,5. So it means in the profit of 5,750, the 2,250 is reserved by or reserved for the preference shares, which means only 3,500 is available to be shared among the 700 ordinary shareholders. So to get the ordinary shareholders, how much each one will get, they will share this amount equally. They will share this amount equally, which means each ordinary share or each ordinary dividend is 3,500 divided by 700 shareholders. So this means each ordinary share is going to receive a 5 kwacha dividend. So this means that of the 700 ordinary shares, if one had purchased 2 of those shares, it means they will get 5 kwacha plus 5 kwacha, which means they'll get 10 kwacha. If somebody had 100 of those 700 ordinary shares, it means they'll get 5 kwacha times 100, which is 500 kwacha. So this is normally how the dividends are paid out. First of all, we get the total contribution of the shareholders to the capital of the organization. Then the percentage of preference is usually given. So if the preference percentage is 10%, it means you get 10% of the total contribution of the shareholders, of the preference shareholders. If the value is 20%, it means we get 20% of the total contribution into the capital by the preference shares. And the amount that we get when we get that percentage, preference percentage of the total capital, that amount is always reserved by the organization when they declare a profit. So that amount is always fixed. The profit will always vary from one operation period to another, but that amount reserved for preference shares is always fixed. So that if you declare a smaller profit, the ones who suffer will be those ordinary shareholders, because their amounts depend mostly on the profit that is declared, whereas the preference shares, their amount is determined by the percentage that they are awarded of the total contribution that they make to the stock of the organization. So this is how we calculate shares in an organization.